right, what's up? What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 96 of the Hideout, where we will be talking Web3 gaming and the Metaverse. It is crazy to think that we have done 96 episodes of this weekly Spaces, but here we are. The space is moving as fast as ever, and we have an awesome panel of familiar faces that we will have up here to talk about some recent developments in what they are building. And I've had the opportunity of hearing the update, and I'm super excited about what they're going to be able to share and to get into some of these topics. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Nick Frontura. I am one of the founders and the CEO of Apollo Entertainment, the company behind the Satoshiverse and the Legions 2029 game. We've been building in the space, coming up on a little over 4 years now. We started Satoshiverse back in 2020 as a collaboration with well-known Marvel and DC comic artist and crypto artist Jose Delvo. We created one of the first Bitcoin-themed superheroes and then evolved that into a blockchain-themed game and gaming universe that we are building, headlined by our game Legions 2029. Which takes place in a dystopian future where the defenders of fiat have taken over and you have to rebel against them. For those of you who are interested in that game, I have pinned a post to the top of the space, which is, has a little bit of gameplay, also has a bunch of information on some of the initiatives we're doing. But at a very high level, the game is a third-person hack and slash game. It's very fast-paced. Has progression that is stored in the NFTs that you can mint. It is one of the first fully blockchain-enabled games that are native to PC. So we worked hard with Hyperplay to be able to enable all sorts of blockchain gaming or blockchain transactions in-game a couple of years ago, and we've been testing and developing ever since. So really excited to roll out our free-to-play game and have all the community feedback as we continue to develop. Just give that the thread a look, and you'll have all the information you need there to play and to join the community. We've got an awesome thing going on. Feel free to jump in there. I won't spend too much time on that, though, because I know we have some awesome speakers who are going to have some great insights today, as they've both been on the spaces before. So what we'll do is we'll do quick introductions of yourselves, what you're building. Feel free to drop or to pin anything up to the top of the spaces that you think would be, insightful or helpful. We love to see gameplay. We love to see footage. We love to see anything, that's illustrative of what you guys are building. I always think that's super helpful, and our goal is always to spread the love. So if you've got something up there, throw it up and pin it up there. And everyone should definitely check it out. Why don't we start? And I know people are going to trickle in, and we may even have one more speaker trickling in. So we can pause if we do. Why don't we start with Gamesodes? It was great seeing them at LA Comic-Con recently. We had the chance to see their booth and everything they've been up to, so we knew we had to get them back on the spaces. Thank you for being here. Tell us, for those of us who don't know about Gamesodes, what you guys are building.
Yeah, hey Nick, thanks for having us back. Always good to be on with you guys, and it's been fun, over the years, even coming back on and hearing about your guys' updates and sharing ours, and then learning about some of the new things that are coming up. But yeah, so my name is Davis Breimer. I'm the founder and CEO of Gamesodes. And Gamesodes takes TV shows and turns them into interactive and playable games. And so I'm not talking like what you might think, like the Netflix style of interactive shows like Bandersnatch, where you choose like to eat the characters eat Fruit Loops or cornflakes and it changes the narrative. I'm talking like you actually get to get transferred into the game, and you get to play it with your favorite characters. And so we started a few years ago, kind of formulating this idea, this idea in partnership with the company that owns the classic Inspector Gadget. where we're essentially taking all the original episodes from the 1980s, and first we're remastering them. So taking the 16 millimeter films, cleaning them, rescanning them, redigitizing them, and recoloring them to how they were originally intended to be experienced. And then we review the episodes and we take little splices, like some frames or some scenes out of the show, and we replace it with interactive scenes and mini games. So we've essentially taken this concept of TV shows that historically you just passively watch by staring at a screen, and we've now made them fully interactive and playable, even with in-show economies. So the same concept of like playing a game and earning coins and leveling up, and ranking up on the leaderboards, you can now do that inside of a show. And so we've launched the platform in beta mode on October 1st, and are about to, ahead of schedule, actually launch the full app before the end of October, with the full beautiful experience for the first episode that we're launching of Inspector Gadget. And so we're currently on track for launching about one episode per month. We currently have a single player episode out. I can tease that next month we're going to be launching our first multiplayer episode. It's going to be pretty epic. And then also next month we're going to be announcing our next show, which is an idea that this group of Hollywood producers had to create a CG 3D animated VTuber style of a talk show, where both people and characters can come onto the show and get interviewed. And so we're pretty excited to announce that towards the end of November, we'll be debuting the first teaser episode, which will be featuring projects, characters, founders, and leaders, initially from the SWI blockchain ecosystem. So if anyone is interested in learning more about that, that's where we come from. That will be coming towards the end of November. But yeah, so that's what we're up to, and having a lot of fun doing it.
Amazing. Well, I'm definitely excited to see that first playable Inspector Gadget episode. And then, I got a sneak peek of some of the stuff that you guys are doing with the ladder, the VTube version. And so I think that's going to be great. I don't know. I don't want to spoil anything for anyone I don't know how secret any of that stuff was, but it was awesome. So seeing it at LA Comic-Con was really, really a cool experience. And I'm excited for you guys to release that to the world, and definitely think what you guys are doing is really cool. So we would love to support any way we can, and glad we could get you on now, and we'll probably have you on later again to tell us how things are going, because it's a really, really cool concept that you guys are putting forward. All right, so let's jump over to our friends at BR1 who are back on the spaces. I know you guys have a ton coming up, so tell us a little bit about what you're building for those who may not know, and give us the update.
What's going on, guys? So we're actually up on two accounts. So I'm going to be speaking for both of them, just to, show as much love and support as we can on the spaces. Before I go, I just want to say, Gameisode, that's super cool. I think the product that you're building, it really speaks to me, and you got me on the Inspector Gadget. When I heard that, I was like, wait a minute, that's kind of cool. I grew up on that shit. So yeah, just kudos to you. What's up, guys? I'm John. I'm CTO and co-founder at Bravo Ready Studios. Some of you in the audience may not know the studio as much as our flagship product. Our main game that we're mostly known for is BR1 Infinite. BR1 is a first of its kind video game. It's a multiplayer shooter game that incorporates real money, skill-based wagering to it. As a mouthful, I'm sure you've heard of play to earn games. BR1 is a kill to earn game. You earn when you do well. So imagine a world where if you hop into the $1 server, it costs you $1 every single time that you hop into this game. So you're really risking it for the biscuit. But every kill that you get in the game, every time you eliminate somebody from the server, you actually take the dollar that they put up to hop in minus some fees. So it's a revolutionary game concept. Been building since 2021. 160,000 users later and 4 NFT collections later, here we are with a really great product. The game was launched about a year ago that we opened our servers to the public. And about 6 months ago, we started what was called the preseason games. This was kind of like a marketing effort and a bit of a quality control effort for us to test scalability and, vertical building of BR1. And essentially what we did was we opened the game for 48 hours a week for 30 weeks. And everyone knew that between those 48 hours, you could come play this game in the public servers, risk it for the biscuit. We gave people a handful of prizes. We gave people $5 every day, basically, to come and risk on our dime to play this game. And also, we were giving out thousands of dollars a week in prizes completely outside of the whole skill-based wagering portion. So a lot of gamers came and made a lot of money over the last 6 months with us. And in return, we learned a lot about our product, how to improve it, what people liked, what people didn't like. And as well, being able to test out the technology from an infrastructural standpoint to see if it can withstand that many users. So it was a very interesting time. The 30th game was about 2 weeks ago, and we've now finished that amazing chapter with BR1, and we're now going back heads down to kind of release the next bit of what BR1 is. The last time that people played the public server about 2 weeks ago, that public build that everyone was playing is about 4 months old. So we actually have quite a lot of updates that are coming. I wouldn't even know how to name all of them, from graphics, optimizations, new effects, new sound effects. Like the list really does go on. Leveling system. All the NFTs are fully integrated into the game. So if you buy something off of Magic Eden, you connect your wallet. You're right there, frictionless. You can actually play the game without NFTs. Very simply, just go to our website, download the game, and hop in. So it's very, very, very excited where BR1 is going. Bravo Ready, however, is the studio that built a handful of these modular pieces of technology, the ones that, if you Frankenstein them all together, so to speak, you get BR1. But those pieces of tech, as modular pieces, actually prove the concept of being able to build an ecosystem around the real money genre, be it real money skill-based wagering on sports games, on racing games, on shooter games. The list goes on. It's quite endless. And so, we recently took in a pretty big cash injection over the last month to go ahead and build out this really awesome ecosystem play that we're doing. It's called the Ready ecosystem. And basically it's going to be a place where gamers can earn in the way that they've experienced from BR1, but from a handful of our partnered game now as well. So, we'll have around the time that we launch this platform, we'll have maybe 5 to 10 different games that are going to be partnered with us that you would be able to earn some real value from there. Now, I'm not going to go too into TGEs and tokenomics and this and that, but very excited nonetheless to start building out the real culture of skill-based wagering, and what better place to do it than from Twitter, doing it with our investors from Solana, from PUBG, from Twitch, and everything in between. So yeah, I'm excited to be here and to talk shop about all sorts of fun things on episode 96, baby.
Amazing. Well, love the energy and have always loved the concept. You guys aren't here every episode, but you'll often hear me refer, as we often talk about, the different use cases of Web3 within gaming, and kind of this area where it can amplify certain game models and may not be right for all game models, but then there are areas where it will enable and create entirely new game genres and models around games. And I often use you guys and kind of the genre of this skill-based real money gaming as the prototype for it, Web3 creating a genre that, or at least infrastructure around a genre that probably wasn't possible before, given the decentralized and non-custodial nature of a lot of the things you can do with Web3. Enabling that genre is huge. So I'm actually super stoked to hear that you guys are doing an ecosystem play, because I think that's what we really need. I think we need, pipelines and tracks to be able to implement this stuff, audited contracts. The risk here is always that you do it wrong, right? And I think that what makes sense is that you guys have been working on it for a long time. You've been doing the testing. You haven't rushed things. You've done, real money into it. And I think that as another project founder, if we were to ever implement like a real money portion, we would either need to do all that lead time ourselves and auditing, or we would need to partner with someone who's really, kicked all the wheels on it and understands the different pitfalls, because it is going to be a completely new frontier that I think games are going into. And it doesn't have to be Web3 games. And that's what I particularly like about this, is that you could overlay it on a lot of the top competitive games in the space that are already balanced and already have incentivization systems to make sure that their games are fair and that there's not glitches and bugs. Because there's so many what ifs with real money gaming that I think, you got to check all those boxes, and that's the challenge. Go ahead. I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm also very humbled. I appreciate the kind words. You touched on something very interesting, where you said that, if you wanted to get into that type of ecosystem, that it's either, you got to do a lot of the heavy lifting and the testing and the auditing and the technical handoffs internally, or you partner with somebody who's done it already. What I find so interesting about this is that, my co-founder and the CEO, Evan, or Ryan Ever on Twitter, he built a very cool company and a very cool product a couple of years prior to us building out Bravo Ready. And it was a Web 2 based platform that allowed you to do skill based wagering in a Web 2 format with Web 2 games, the Fortnites and PUBGs and Call of Duties. It was a very simple and elegant system. And I'll contrive it a little bit just to oversimplify and make it easy for the audience. But basically it was a platform where you'd go and you'd wager, let's say $5 with a group of 10 guys, and you'd basically say, I'm going to outperform all of you in my next 3 Fortnite matches. And you'll go and play your 3 individual games, and based on how you perform within your server, you're basically building like a peer-to-peer tournament platform. And so we already, with everything that we learned over the last several years, and by the way, we sold this company to a publicly traded company on the Toronto Stock Exchange. So we have a very good understanding of the auditing and regulatory affairs that go into these types of systems. And the one thing that we didn't have at the time was our own game. And the problem, the real machinations of it all that made it very difficult to keep pursuing and grow it to that, eventual multi-billion-dollar type of thing, is that every time that Fortnite or Call of Duty or PUBG updates the game, our external APIs that are used to track people's stats would also break, and we'd have to constantly play this upkeep management, which was a very expensive and time-consuming process to ensure that the system kept working. And the one thing we didn't have, which seemed kind of impossible to do at the time, was to have our own game. And so what we were able to do is we ported some technology, some ideas of how people were doing these types of things in Web 2. We brought those to a Web 3 idea. And then we also built a game to prove the concept that it would work and that it's valuable. And that if ever we do any updates to the game, we're also the ones controlling the APIs for the tournaments that we build now. So everything is quite scalable. So you nailed it on the head there when you said that either you got to build that tech and that infrastructure internally, or you partner with somebody that has the prowess to do that. And we were doing this even before I ever heard about Solana.
Amazing. Yeah. I mean, again, I think it's going to be an entire new genre. So I think that you guys are onto something, and I think that um, there's going to be lots of great games that would benefit from this sort of infrastructure integration. And I'm definitely not a Web3 game evangelist. I think I try to wear the hat of someone that wants to see Web3 technology integrated into all gaming where it's useful, but not necessarily where it's not useful. But I think this is a really good example of a place where Web3, or where the gaming space more generally, could benefit from this, peer-to-peer decentralized technology, and that I think regulators may be more willing to get on board with, because that's always dicey and multi-jurisdictional. And as a former lawyer, that's the headache that I always have whenever I look at these sorts of things. But again, you guys have checked the boxes. You've gone through all that. You've designed it in a way that complies. I can only imagine the amount of work that was. So excited to see what you guys have been able to accomplish, and even more excited to hear that you guys are packaging it up and making it available to other developers. So thank you guys. And yeah, let's jump over to Spencer for the spaces to take it away.
What is going on, everyone? I am Spencer Vogel. I am the business development manager here with Satoshiverse and Apollo Entertainment. John and Davis, pleasure as always to have you guys on the space and chat with y'all. So to get into a little bit of housekeeping, so what I'm going to do right now is pin a tweet to the top of the space. So we do a giveaway on every single one of our Hideout episodes. And so we're going to be giving away 5 Satoshi's crystals this week, which is one of our main in-game resources, which you need to upgrade your in-game assets and avatars. Really, really important asset within the game. So in order to win those 5 Satoshi's crystals, you basically just have to stay here and still be here at the end of the space when we finish up. And then also give that post a repost that I just pinned to the top of the space that says we're live. And if you haven't already, please give this account, the Hideout, a follow. We're trying to build up the brand around the Hideout specifically, so would really, really, really appreciate a follow there. And then getting into the format of the space, we're going to start out with a group question. I'll call on to someone to start, and then feel free to just jump in from there. No need to raise hands or anything like that. And then we'll do some individual questions, and then get back into group questions at the end if we have time. So without further ado, let's move into our first question. And Davis, maybe you can start us off on this one. So what impact do you think decentralized digital identities will have on things like player progression and reputation within the Web3 gaming space?
A big one. So it's actually something that's really important to us at Gamesodes and how we're building out our platform and the tools that we're offering to creators. And so I can use an example of some things that are coming up with our platform with Inspector Gadget is, normally when you're playing like a big brand or even smaller brands, depending on the creators, you buy into the platform and you unlock some skins and start equipping it. And, before you know it, you're spending money out of your own pocket, or if you're a kid, from your allowance. And then, one day maybe you outgrow that platform. Classic example could be like Roblox, right? Like a lot of people grow out of Roblox and go to Fortnite. Or maybe that platform one day decides that they're no longer going to be in business, or the IP that you're working with is no longer available on that platform. And then suddenly all that hard work and all that investment of time or money that you have, not necessarily an investment, but just the time that you've spent, or your hard-earned money that you've spent, is now, like, I don't want to say wasted, but yeah, kind of wasted, right? Like you can't really make any value out of it anymore. And we feel like, thinking about digital identity, there's for a lot of us, it's kind of like, there's no differentiation between the real world and the virtual world, or we hold an actual identity in the virtual world. And so our philosophy is, why should that be any different? Like if I'm, 10 years old or 40 years old and I play in a basketball tournament and I win a trophy, that trophy is mine. right? I get to keep that. I get to put it in a box if I want to. I can burn it in a bonfire if I want to, or I can sell it in a thrift store if I want to. So why should it be any different in the virtual world? And our philosophy is that it shouldn't. So the approach that we're taking is developing the tools that allow creators, both big and small, so ranging from big like Inspector Gadget to small like the VTuber show that I mentioned, the ability to build in the virtual space, and to give people those same rights. And so a big part of how we're doing that is with avatars, and starting with the Inspector Gadget brand. So I'm not really aware of anywhere else that you can do this, and it's a feature that will be released soon. So if you're interested in, if you collect or you like to play games where you can wear a skin of a favorite character, definitely pay attention, because we're going to be releasing this soon, and they will have mint numbers, if that's something that you're into. And so we're going to be releasing avatar skins of all the Inspector Gadget characters. Some of them will be free to claim, some of them will cost you gadget coins, and then equipables. And the plan with the equipables include all 165 of Inspector Gadget's gadgets that he used during season 1 of the 1980s show. And so, again, like going back to our philosophy of kind of paving the way for how things should be done in the digital and virtual space, is you own these. Like, these are objects that you own in your wallet, or your account, right? And if Inspector Gadget ever stops, producing shows on the Gamesodes platform, then you still keep these avatars. Like, you can still use them, across the ecosystem. That's one level of it. And then I'll loosely touch on another one that I think is equally as important, but a little bit more into the future, and that's interoperability. And so, a lot of people will say, okay, well, sure, like, we can use the Inspector Gadget avatar, but only on Gamesodes, right? Like, you can't really take it elsewhere and use it on other platforms. And what we want to do is to essentially create an opportunity where other platforms are kind of almost in a way forced to start thinking about the interoperability, where we're developing the avatars and the files and the 3D files in a way that are universally recognized. And so any other platform that can read a universally recognized 3D file would be able to accept this avatar to join into that ecosystem and be equipped, skinned, equipped, played with, even programmatically used, right? Because there's nothing really stopping you from taking one wallet and using it elsewhere. It's whether or not what's in your wallet can be read by another platform. And so this is looking into the future, but these are things that Gamesodes is already thinking about as we're building out our platform and building out tools that we will be extending and already are extending to creators, both big and small. So a little bit of a here and a little bit of a there for you, Spencer.
Yeah, I think, you hit the nail on the head in a lot of places there. I guess the idea of digital identities and kind of like you said, people already have this concept of a digital identity, whether they're a content creator or let's say they have a favorite game, they are their character in that game, especially when you talk about competitive gaming and customizable avatars. And a lot of times those identities exist within these walled gardens. And I think that we have this tendency to not realize how limiting that can be, because you're kind of at the mercy of the guardian keeper, right? If it's a Fortnite skin, well, everything you do with that avatar is going to have to be approved by Fortnite, even if you're just doing a podcast and you want to use that avatar as a skin. There's a million things that are there, and so I think that for better or for worse, one of the biggest projects in the PFP space were the Bored Ape avatars. And one of the things that they really at least did an attempt to pioneer was this idea of, ownership rights in the underlying IP. And I think that I don't know that that's going to be right for every single project, but I do think that as the idea of a digital identity becomes more, important as like a value, like a valuable asset within the digital world, and as the pipelines for creating unique characters, either through AI or programmatically generated assets, as those pipelines become simpler, I think what you're going to see is kind of more of a standard develop, not just like we're saying around, ownership interest in the underlying IP and the ability to do more things with those avatars, but as you were talking about, kind of the technical components of the avatars. And so kind of, I mean, speaking from our own experience, when we were building our Legionnaires collection back in 2020, we also kind of envisioned a future. I guess it was 2021. We were envisioning a future where you're going to have all of these different games being built predominantly on, Unreal and Unity, and you were going to want to have avatars running around in these games. And so we spent, 4 months trying to figure out a pipeline for programmatically generating 3D avatars that were distinct and unique, that fit the Unreal mannequin. And so now, in theory, I mean, what we haven't seen is necessarily the interoperability standards emerge to make it seamless. Although there's a company called, speaking of the word emerge, the company's called Emergent that has been at work probably for about 3 years now, and they just had a bunch of big announcements. And that's exactly what they do. They have an Unreal SDK that, as long as your avatars conform to a certain format, it's going to allow different projects that opt in to, bring in any kind of, Unreal mannequin asset into all these different games and make that pipeline seamless. So I'm actually really excited about what they're doing, because I think it's going to accelerate a lot of these interoperability conversations that we had. But I think beyond that, this idea of, okay, where does Web3 come in? Well, that's kind of the ownership layer, right? If you're going to be able to own the identity, and sure, there's a persistence aspect of it, but there also is kind of this idea of, what can I do with it, right? And I think that if we start to think about Web3 as like this method of facilitating tangibilization of digital assets, so that we can start to look at a digital asset as something that can exist outside of a walled garden, right? Because before, they couldn't. They were just licenses to use something within this closed ecosystem. Now with Web3, in theory, we can have them outside of that garden. They can be this semi-tangible thing. Now we have to define, what does that mean? And I think that the Inspector Gadget's a good example. There may be limiting factors with certain IPs that say, well, you can't go and make 1,000 copies of your character and sell them, but you can take it to X, Y, and Z platform, and that's going to depend on the licenses and the deals that different companies have struck up, right? But I think that on the other hand, you could have potentially some of these generative projects that say, you own everything. Like that's your art. Like, do with it as you will. If you want to create a 3D avatar of it and build a game and create derivatives and build an IP, like kind of what we did with our Ape Mo Army collection, which is based on our ape character, go do that, right? And I think that there's going to be a level, kind of a spectrum of the rights that now can be offered as a result of Web3 being involved in this tangibilization layer. And I think we're just scratching the surface on what that's going to look like. But I'm excited already. I think there's several projects working on this solution for digital identities being able to be used in different ways across projects, which is, very exciting in my book.
Yeah, and what's kind of interesting about this, and nobody would probably especially on this podcast, like nobody would ever have predicted this, that one of the leaders in interoperability of 3D objects is Pixar. So Pixar, they're one of the leaders in 3D animation. And they had this issue originally where they had so many different people working together across so many different tools that they had interoperability issues, even within only just one company. So they created this thing called USD, has nothing to do with crypto or money. It stands for Universal Scene Descriptors, and it became a universal format to communicate about 3D objects. And then they ended up doing something that is very unconventional for a Web2 company, especially one that's now owned by Disney. They open sourced it. And now there's a whole organization that is, that has Pixar and Apple in it, for example. I believe NVIDIA is involved as well. And it's just this whole effort of creating like truly interoperable 3D objects, ranging from characters to environments to textures, you name it. And so, that's something that Gamesodes is involved with and getting more involved with, because we truly believe it, right? Like, a lot of companies will say, oh yeah, it's important to have things be interoperable, and then they make them interoperable just within their own platform. So there's still that walled garden. But, the tech is here. The future is coming where you will be able to do like a Ready Player One style of like, you can just hop with your avatar from universe to universe. Like that's coming. So, our take on it is then why don't we just dive right into it, lean heavily into that and be part of the conversation. And then it's the Web3 element that we believe is really going to introduce the true ownership side of it. So, roping this back to Spencer's original question, the topic of Web3 identities, and owning your identity, it's coming, right? I mean, the ownership of your identity is here, but then the question of like, then what can you do with it? Where can you go with it? Like, I'm happy to say that is also coming, but you just have to pay attention to, whether or not the platform you're getting involved with is walled garden. Like now, is it always going to be walled garden? And then what's their plan to introduce interoperability?
I'd like to add one thing about interoperability with your identity. No one did it better than Google, in my opinion. The fact that like there was an era that we could barely even remember anymore. You'd go to a website and you'd need to have like a username and password for that specific website, and it doesn't necessarily port over to any other website. And we just like, that's not, I don't even think like that anymore. It's just not a thing, like when I go to a website, if they don't have sign in with Google, like you're the weirdo, I don't even want to interact with you. And we've just gotten so used to like not needing to sign in to other places. You kind of port over your identity into different ecosystems through Google. And I've said it time and time again in the early days of Web3 that every technology learned from its predecessor, and Google learned early that if you want to be able to onboard people into various places over the net, that they just need to have one kind of place that they can constantly churn out activity without having to have too many accounts all over the place. And we need to learn from our predecessors in Web3 that having that same type of interoperability with our cryptocurrency and our identities, and having these things being very easily ported over between you and your wallet, you and various games, you and different platforms, being on the web, being on mobile, and having all these things like pretty well established, well secure, scalable, that you could be on this one identity that you just port over to different places. That's kind of needed because we all live like that already. It's kind of like the gold standard already, and the gold standard is a lot of fun. It's very easy. It's very frictionless. Just wanted to kind of add a little flavor to that. We've got to learn from Web 2 a little bit.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
if you want to take if you want to take that one step further, and it's something that not many people are aware of because the ecosystem's relatively new but growing quite quickly. So there's actually a tool on Sui called ZK Login where you can actually create your wallet and log into it using Google. I think they also offer Twitch, Apple, and Meta. And
Yeah. I've seen these things for sure. It's about the mass adoption, not so much the technology. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it's both because it is, there's certain security procedures and encryptions in there where, you don't want to share your identity, but you want to use your identity to access your, your stuff, and especially like to not have to remember, long key phrases and all of that. So it's just as secure and it's zero knowledge. I just thought, it's a really cool like example of what you were saying, right? About like tapping into Web3 solutions to help bridge folks into Web3 solutions for like, permanent ownership and stuff.
Yeah, I think this topic, which kind of loosely falls into all the work we've seen around account abstraction and social logins. There's been in gaming specifically, you've seen a ton of infrastructure development work pretty much across all EVM chains to abstract away these complexities of having a wallet that has a weird, MetaMask front end with a number and keys. And I think that, there's probably debates to be had on some of them and whether they're doing it right or whatever it may be. But this theme of maintaining identities that are familiar and simplifying the process so that someone doesn't have to remember 35 different things depending on where they interact, I think is prevalent, particularly in the gaming space, which has become kind of the testing ground for pushing, more of the hybridization of Web 2 and Web 3 than maybe any of the other use cases that preceded it in the blockchain space. So I think that's been a notable development that came out of this kind of blockchain gaming meta, is that blockchains in general have become easier to use because they want to service games and gamers. But I think the other thing I actually read, it was probably 8 or 9 months ago now, that GoDaddy had partnered with Ethereum name service so that, I guess there was a time where people were buying up names and saying, this is going to be, this wallet address, the ENS domain is going to be our digital identity, forever. And you had a lot of cyber squatting and all the fun stuff on those domains and lots of big sales of domains because there was this idea of this is going to be your digital identity and you're going to use it as your access point. And then, you see GoDaddy, which, huge Web 2 domain name service, come and partner with ENS so that you can use web domains from GoDaddy as an ENS wallet address and essentially route things to an existing crypto wallet. And I think that because those pipelines are technologically feasible and we're seeing implementations, it's just a matter of time, before that gets prioritized and that becomes the new standard. I think it's always been a bit crazy that to onboard someone for the last, at least the last 7 years that I've been in this space, you're having them set up wallets and write down phrases and cautioning. You spend more time telling them what not to do and how not to get scammed than you do just trying to onboard them into whatever you're trying to create. Luckily, I think that's improved considerably over the last year or two with some of these account abstraction and social login pipelines. But yeah, I think we're moving towards that world. And for fear of not getting to any of the other questions, I'll shut up now. Kick it back to Spencer.
Awesome. No, I don't want to interrupt your great discussion once it gets going. So, but yeah, let's move things along. Let's do the first individual question to Davis. So, how do you see the ways we interact with video content changing over the coming years, and what differences might be there for different age groups or market segments?
Yeah, well, Spencer, my take on this, right? Like we've been talking about it for years now. It's already changed. What hasn't changed is the studios that are creating the video content, and the technology that is used primarily to consume the content. And I'll bring this more from the abstract to the real, is like nobody ever really just watches TV anymore. And this is my catchphrase, right? Like we're all watching TV while playing Candy Crush, shopping on Amazon, and texting with our friends on our phone. And so Netflix, for a while there, was actually touting themselves on their board calls, or their calls with Wall Street, as we're the background noise. We're what people play when they're doing something else. And it's just a weird way to approach it because they're essentially saying, yeah, we're not giving people what they want, which is something that's more interactive, more engaging, where they can engage in commerce, but without actually like completely interrupting the flow of enjoying the entertainment. And so Gamesodes was the result of probably a couple years of just talking with the industry and meeting really fascinating people from, Hollywood and production studios and, OGs. And that's where I met one of my business partners, Sandra Schwartz, who's the former president of Warner Brothers Animation. And so it's our take that the future of entertainment is changing. Like it is currently changing, like with Gamesodes, but with many other ways. But the consumer has been wanting this for a long time. And so you mentioned different age groups, Spencer, and the best example is, so if anyone here has any like young kids in their lives, whether it's a niece or a nephew or a child or a neighbor, we've probably all seen it where a child walks up, like in the living room, to a big screen TV and tries to swipe the big screen TV. And, like we all laugh, but the child starts to cry because that is what kids today expect. They grow up with a phone or a tablet in their hands, right or wrong, parents doing that at various ages, but that's what they start with. And so they are expecting to be able to interact with the screen in front of them. And they flip back and forth between shows and games and this YouTube or that YouTube or this Roblox and that Roblox, like faster than like we could even load one of the apps, right? And so they're growing up expecting it. And so these are a lot of different things that Gamesodes has taken into consideration about how we're introducing our new form of entertainment, Gamesodes, and also how we position it for the various age groups, both in terms of like what's appropriate for the age groups, what each like legal jurisdiction allows you to do with different age groups, parental permissions, like all of that. But specific to your question, Spencer, the future of entertainment is interactive, and that's where we're taking it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more there. I think, when we think about kind of all the current themes, right, in tech, the big ones, you've got AI, which is dominating, right? In our world, it's Web3, and then, entertainment is always persistent, whether that's gaming or movies or whatever it may be. But when we start to think about and have conversations about how do all these meet in the future, where is AR going to play into this? Where is VR going to play into this? I think what we're going to see is experiences are going to continually become smaller, more personalized, and more gamified, right? They're going to become more interactive. And I think that's one of the things that maybe caused me to found Apollo Entertainment with our partners, is that we wanted to be on that forefront of kind of changing the way entertainment is thought about. And I truly believe in 5 to 10 years, gaming won't necessarily be, playing a feature-length game on a computer or with a controller on an Xbox. That we're going to be wearing lenses and we're going to be gaming while we're walking through the mall, and there's going to be commerce, put into that, and our parents are going to be questing because they go to 5 different stores, and after completing the 5 different stores, they get a 20% coupon to buy something that they were looking for anyways. And maybe those are stores that we shop at anyways. But I think that as we start to overlay digital on the physical world, the idea of gamifying anything that could be considered entertainment and making it more interactive is just going to happen. I look at my mom. She just downloaded this app, and I can't remember the name. Maybe the production studio will feed it to me. But the app is basically these little birds that you upgrade, but they're based on, you get your upgrades based on doing these health goals, right? And so what they're doing is they're gamifying with these little birds and Tamagotchi like birds the health things. And of course I'm talking to my mom about it, and she's like, yeah, you have to tell it that you did this and whatever. I'm like, well, are you actually doing the stuff. And she's like, no, well, I just tell it I drink the water. I don't actually drink the water. I'm like, Mom, that's kind of defeating the purpose of this app. But you look at even just breathing, right? You can gamify breathing with technology and all that. So, when we start to think about something like what you guys have started with, right? Which is, let's take an IP and I think we talked about this at Comic-Con. Let's take an IP that's iconic, that we already know is battle tested, that people like, and let's add an element to it that makes it more interactive. That's an awesome idea. And there's so many IPs like that I would love to see come back in a whole new way. And I think we will see. And I hope you guys are the ones who do it, because I think it's an awesome idea that's just going to add value. Imagine all those episodes of Pokemon, the original series that we were obsessed with, coming back in that form. And now you can collect them, or you could be part of the training process, or you decide whether to throw them. Who knows? There's a million things, but I'm excited, guys. Like, whether it's us or whether it's you guys, I think it's just the space is exciting. And as long as we don't blow ourselves up or get taken over by Optimus, I think it's going to be real fun to play with some of the gadgets that are going to be out in the next 5 to 10 years, on a what I would consider a fairly short timeline before we see, paradigm shifts in all these industries. So glad to have you guys a part of it. Again, I'll shut up. I know we got one more question to go through, but this is something I'm passionate about.
Thanks, Nick. All right, so final question to John. So what impacts do you think Web3 technology will have on skill-based gaming? I know we talked about this a little bit in the intro, but if you got anything else for us?
For sure. Well, skill-based wagering isn't inherently a Web3 concept. It is just a concept that you're wagering something in some kind of experience. It could be as simple as getting sharked at the pool hall in the 80s, all the way to where we're at now. Where we came from originally, from the Web2 space, and doing what we were doing with other games already kind of proved the concept of that. But what really brings it all together, I believe, what differentiates between skill-based wagering in a Web2 format versus skill-based wagering in a Web3 format is the ability to have the crypto side of things and the digital aspect of these things to be done without much middleman involved. And I know that sounds a bit contrived, because BR1 is a centralized game, and you hop in with let's call it monopoly funds, and then when you eventually want to withdraw, you would take that Web2 currency that you have that's associated to your account, and you would do a withdrawal, and then we would send you funds based on what you're owed. Even though the process is pseudo automated, there is still a middleman, of course. And there's a reason for that. In the early days, Solana was having a lot of congestion and a lot of problems with it. And so we were a bit scared at the time to be hinged on, a blockchain, that could, maybe be down or something. That being said, BR1 is not the only game that we've built. We actually built another game stack, which is called, the Mini Arena stack. It's a different game. It's mobile friendly, and it's fully decentralized. There's no middleman in terms of the payment. And so what we thought of doing, in the early inception of our company and our studio, was we're going to make one game that's trying to aim for the AAA aesthetic and the centralized aesthetic, and a platform at which we can drive Web2 users to something that they know and can experience, and is not hinged on connecting a wallet, adding your funds. There's a bit of a friction that people have to get onboarded with in that way. And then we made this other product that is very mobile friendly, but high level of friction as far as it goes with crypto. But the beauty of that product is that it requires zero middlemen. It is quite literally you in a server with somebody, and you put up the funds in Solana or in Bonk or in Aptos, whatever we've built at the time. And you'll quite literally receive the funds from the guy that you killed immediately, and you'll see it on the blockchain, which is a very cool concept, because like you said, that, the next level of entertainment is going to be something that's like high levels of interactability, and less like watching, more experiencing. It's cool to imagine a world where, and I quite literally have seen this from the other game that we put out, that somebody would be literally waiting for the bus, and they're on their phone and they're playing this game. And in the 3 or 4 minutes that they were waiting for the bus, they made the bus fare from playing the game, which I think is hilarious. The next step further from there is that they would be able to immediately pay for that bus fee with their phone that's connected to USDC already. And I think that those are not crazy ideas to imagine over the next decade, maybe not in the next 6 months, but we're going to be so interconnected like that you could literally hop into a world, do a thing, extract value, use it in your everyday purchases. It's nothing that I don't think is out of the ordinary. But back to your original question, what does Web3 bring to the skill-based wagering side of things is that ability to be able to do this on a global scale, right? It doesn't sound very crazy now when you think about it, but FaceTime and all of these like ways that we talk to people and communicate to people changed the world on a global scale. That I can call my grandmother on the other side of the world, and I can speak to my best friend on the other side of the country. And we've gotten so used to this, and all of the employees that we have at Bravo Ready Studios aren't inherently from Montreal, right? Only 3 or 4 of us out of the team are actually from the headquarters. But I speak to people every day from different countries, and I barely even feel that. And now it's going to feel like that with a monetary kind of angle to it. And I think that's a very, very interesting thing, that Web3 can bridge the gap between people the same way that Facebook did, and the same way that FaceTime has done, and all of these ways that we speak on a global aspect and be able to communicate. We're now going to be able to communicate financially at the same level of connectivity. And that's a very interesting thing, because we weren't able to do that with regular fiat, right? When we built our previous company that was in a Web2 aspect, we were dealing with Canadian dollars, and we didn't have the ability to open up the floodgates to the entire world. And being able to have the ability to do that on a global scale from where we come from an independent studio it's a monumental thing. It really does open up different avenues that we couldn't have done prior.
Love it. Thanks for that response. And we are at the top of the hour here, so I do want to move us along and get us closed out. So to announce the giveaway winner, this week, the winner of 5 Satoshi's crystals is Chris S, or at _CS. Congratulations, Chris. In order to claim your prize, please go to game.legions2029.com. That's game.legions2029.com. Create a free account, and then send the Satoshiverse account a DM with your username, and we'll drop those crystals into your account. Congratulations. And then, Nick, I will pass it back to you to close us out.
Amazing. Well, as always, first, congratulations on winning. Second, thank you to all the speakers. Another super engaging conversation. I'm just, fortunate to be able to do this every week and talk to experts in the space and get to blab in between them a little bit. So I always enjoy doing this, and I'm grateful that we can continue to have such great guests. Thank you to everyone who also showed up in the audience. I see a lot of familiar faces, but then a few new ones. So if you are in the audience, or if you're listening to the recorded version and you don't know about what we're doing, we do this spaces every week at the same time. It's 1 Eastern time on Tuesdays, for those in the East Coast, at 10 Pacific, and then I won't go through every time zone, but you guys can figure it out. So do follow the Hideout account to get the updates. If you're interested in blockchain gaming, in addition to following all of our wonderful guests, check out the Satoshiverse. We've got all the information on our game Legions 2029, which is free to play PC game. It's pinned to our the top of the spaces and to our Twitter. So check it out. I guess I'll kick it over to the rest of the guests to close us out. If you have any thoughts, final closing thoughts, or want to let people know how to find you, feel free. And then I will close up the spaces. There'll be a small delay between me announcing that it's closed and actually closing it, as there is a small delay in our voices permeating to all the listeners. So Thank you all again, and feel free to close us out.
I guess I can jump in first here. Davis, founder and CEO of Gamesodes. Thanks for having us on, Nick. It was always good to be here, and it was a really fun coincidence bumping into you guys at LA Comic Con. I guess my parting message would be join us. Join Gamesodes, become a member. It's free to sign up. And the first episode of Inspector Gadget's already live in beta format. That's also free. So you can start playing the shows by downloading Gamesodes from the App Store or from Google Play Store.
All right, unless Bravo Ready wants to jump in, we can close it out. And thank you all again for your time, and see you all next week.
Thanks for having us, guys. Definitely give us a follow. We've got some really awesome updates coming in the next month. So stay tuned. And Satoshiverse, once again, I do appreciate you, bringing us up today, and to many more. Can't wait to join again.
All right, thanks everyone.